pleasant day, everyone. So before I start, let me first introduce myself. I am Ivan Rose Butanilan Umolan and I am your teacher for today's discussion. So before I proceed, let me first ask you one question. So what is motivation? I know you have already idea about this since Miss Mihurada already discussed it. Yes, Miss Campuso? Okay, very good. So motivation is something that energizes, directs, and sustains behavior. It gets students moving, points them in a particular direction, and keep them going. So there are two primary kinds of motivation, the intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So let's talk about first about the intrinsic motivation. Please read. Okay, thank you. So intrinsic motivation is based on motives that the individual is trying to satisfy. So according to Underman and Underman, Dexy and Ryan, Rest in Wolf 2013, when intrinsically motivated, there is no need for incentives or rewards because the activity itself is satisfying and rewarding. So this simply means that it comes from within an individual. You're doing that such things because you enjoy it, not just because of some sort of rewards. So like for example, someone asks you nga nung education man imong gikuha nga course day. And you answer because I love teaching. Or shall we say, I enjoy sharing my ideas to other people. So in that case, you are intrinsically motivated because you are not expecting any return or rewards. So you're doing that particular thing because you found it interesting and you find it satisfying. So nasabtan ra? Okay, let's proceed to extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is conquering a challenge for a reason like earning a high grade, avoiding punishment, please a teacher, or some other reason that has very little to do with the task itself. So it is based on incentives. So according to Wolfok 2013, there is really no interest in the task or activity itself but only the gains one expects to get out of the task. So, extrinsic motivation is obviously opposite from intrinsic motivation. Okay, like for example, kanang naay major exams and quizzes. So, bisan di ka ganahan magbasa-basa sa imong concept notes kay tag-as kaayo ug labad sa uo, but still you do it just because you want to get a high score from that exam or quizzes. So you are extrinsically motivated because you have your goals nga dapat makakuha ka og high score sa ana nga exam. So you're doing that thing because you are expecting any return or reward. So another example para mas masabtan. Who among you here experience saying, for the sake of my grade? That even if you don't like to do that thing, gibuhat gihapon nimo para sa imong grado. So in that scenario, you are extrinsically motivated. The dichotomy between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is not an all or nothing thing. There are two explanations for this view. So we have first, please read. Okay, thank you. So our activities fall along a continuum from fully determined, which is intrinsic motivation, to fully determined by others, or extrinsic motivation. So for example, students may choose to work hard in activity that is not particularly enjoyable, but they know that working hard in an activity will make it easier for them to reach their goals. So example, the student is given an assignment to create a poster about the challenges of teachers. Doing it may not find them very enjoyable, but still they have to do it creatively to gain a high grades from that assignment. So here is a case of motivation level which is in between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic. So the students chooses freely outside causes, as in getting a high grade from that specific assignment or activity and trying to get the best rewards or benefits from the requirement. Okay, let's proceed to number 2. So intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are not two ends of a continuum. Rather, they are two independent possibilities. At any given time, we can be motivated by some aspect of each. So that is according to Covington and Miller in Woolfolk 2013. So for example, teacher may realize that intrinsic motivation may not work all the time for students. There will be situations where incentives and external supports are necessary. So like for example, if you remember, katong ka Ma'am Almira, she encouraged her students to participate in an activity during the college day. Nya ana siya og naay ma-champion will be exempted in the major exams. So, that will serve as a reward sa students nga ma-champion sa ilahang giapilan. So in that situation, the teacher used extrinsic motivation just for her students to participate in that activity. So any questions or clarification about the kinds of motivation? So we can proceed to approaches to motivation. Let's move on to approaches to motivation. So generally, there are 5 approaches to motivation which teacher can select from when they want the students to get interested or focus on the lesson. That is according to Woolfolk 2013. So we have first the behavioral approach. Student motivation starts with the teacher doing a careful analysis of the incentives and rewards present and available in the classroom. A reward is an attractive object or even given as a result of a particular behavior. An incentive is an object or event that encourages behavior. The promise of a high grade is an incentive. Receiving the grade is a reward. So, it is a way for the teacher as encouragement to their students to do their best in studies in a way of giving gifts, incentives, bonus points, and etc. So, example for this is from the lower grade, elementary students. So, the teachers give them stars whenever the students accomplish the given task. So in that way, the children get motivated because the teacher makes them feel that they are very good in the class. So second is the humanistic approach. Please read. Thank you. So proponents of humanistic psychology like Carl Rogers argue that other schools of psychology are not adequate to explain why people act and behave the way they do. This approach emphasizes intrinsic sources of motivation like for self-actualization or the need of self-determination. So like for example, a teacher may focus on fostering an environment that supports students' self-actualization and personal growth. Instead of solely emphasizing grades, the teacher encouraged students to explore their interests, express creativity, and set of personal goals for learning. So this approach values intrinsic motivation and the development of the whole individual, aiming to inspire a genuine love for learning and a sense of fulfillment in students. Okay, so next is the cognitive approach. People are viewed as active and curious, searching for information and solving problems. This approach emphasizes intrinsic motivation and believes that behavior is determined by our thinking, not because we were rewarded or not punished for past behavior. Behavior is initiated and regulated by plans, expectations, and attribution. An example of cognitive approach to motivation could be a student's preparing for a difficult exam. So the student's motivation is influenced by their thoughts and beliefs about the exam, like positive self-talk, such as believing in their ability to understand the material and perform well, can enhance motivation. Additionally, setting specific study goals, planning strategies to tackle challenges topics, and using effective learning techniques are cognitive processes that contribute to the student's motivation to succeed in the exam. So fourth is the social cognitive approach. So motivation is seen as the result of two forces: the individual expectations of reaching a goal and the value of that goal to the person. If these two forces are present, then motivation will be strong. However, their one force is zero, then there is no motivation to work toward a goal. So consider a person who decides to adopt a healthier lifestyle by exercising regularly. So in this scenario, social influences play a significant role. The individual might observe friends or influences successfully incorporating exercise into their lives. So through modeling, they learn new behaviors and techniques. Additionally, social support, encouragement, and positive feedback from friends or a community contribute to the person's motivation, reinforcing the belief that adopting a healthier lifestyle is achievable and rewarding. So lastly is the social cultural approach. So this approach emphasis is on participation in communities of practice. People engage in activities to maintain their identities and their interpersonal relations in the community. Thus, students are motivated to learn if they belong to a classroom or a group that values learning and where they believe learning is important to their lives. Imagine in a group of colleagues working on a project with tight deadlines. So the social cultural context, including the organizational culture and social norms within the team, influences their motivations. The team shares values, collaborations, and a sense of collective responsibility contribute a motivating environment. The cultural expectations of the workplace, such as recognizing and celebrating achievement as a group, further influence the team's motivation to work cohesively and meet project goals. Okay, so any questions and clarification about the kinds of motivation and approaches to motivation? Okay, so let's proceed to our activity. So all you have to do is to determine what kind of motivation is being shown in the following statements. Write I am if it is intrinsic motivation, and EM if it is intrinsic motivation. So you have 10 minutes to answer the activity. Okay, are you done? So let's check your activity. So number 1 is EM. Number 2 is EM. 3 is IM. 4 is IM. 5 is EM. 6 is IM. 7 is IM. 8 is EM. 9 is IM. And 10 is EM. So, who get a perfect score? Okay, very good, students. So that could be all for my discussion. The next topic will be tackled by Miss Rachel Go.